Welcome to another episode of Voyages. Voyages is a podcast where I speak to successful business and technology leaders to share their journey with everybody. Our next guest on the podcast is Mr. Sampark Sachdeva. Over the past 12 years, Sampark has worked with some of the country's biggest brands like Asian Paints, Ola, and Oyo. In 2019, Sampark was rated as one of the top 100 marketing and sales professionals in India in a study conducted by Oracle and Paul Reiter. In the same year, he also won the LinkedIn Spotlight Award to 2019. Sampark does corporate trainings, sales and marketing consultancy, and has trained over 17,500 people so far. Welcome, Sampark. It's such a great pleasure to have you on my podcast.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you so much.
So, Sampark, we know each other for a long time. Tell us a little bit about your initial journey in school, college, etc. You seem to be a marketer at heart already. Is that true? And how's been your early days like?
So Gaurav, I grew up in Jamshedpur, a small town, almost run by the Tatas themselves. So I come with that Tata thing in my blood there.
Yeah.
And I majorly after 12th, a lot of people move out of Jamshedpur. So I came to Bombay. And growing up in a small town, everybody said you're good in accounts, so CA karna hai, etc. And that's where I started with my CA coaching along with my graduation. 3-4 months into it, I realized, yeah, this is not what I want to do. It's too boring a thing. And I was still trying to figure out, unlike what I have spoken to you, I never had that clarity on karna kya hai. And while I was doing my BCom in Bombay, so I dropped out of the whole CA coaching bit there. And then I started doing a little bit of part-time jobs here and there to try and experiment on what it was. So it was in my second year where I was working part-time in a TV store. So I used to go to college in the morning. In the evening, I used to go and sell television in one of these huge electronic stores there. And that is where that whole thing of, okay, this is what I'm enjoying. The consumer walking in, understanding the need, convincing him, and seeing them walk out that whole happy and satisfied thing. And that's where I said, yeah, this is where the maza aa raha hai types. And that's where this whole love for sales, marketing came in. And by the time I finished my graduation, I was very clear ki MBA karna hai and marketing mein hi karna hai. I don't want a minor bit in any other field. This is what I want to make a career in. And so, yes, that is where the love for marketing and sales came in.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So I think it's, so you found your passion for marketing while doing your graduation, which I think kind of led to a successful post-graduation followed by a successful career. Right. How do you do you call it serendipity, or do you just call it, you trying out multiple options and just one of them sticking around? What else did you try apart from, selling into electronic stores? Did you try other things as well? Or was it the only thing that you kind of found your passion for?
See, when you talk from a selling perspective or the whole thing of conversing with people, I remember I used to work with a NGO in Bombay as well during those same times. Okay. There, and as an intern, one of the tasks that I was given was that they had a base of 2,000 odd people who were and who had donated in the past. So my work was to call all the 2,000 and update their contact details. So it was a lot of small things that were there. So I've done that cold calling bit also, while it was not selling, but to randomly call people and say, sir, is your address still the same? Is your number still the same? Is your email ID still the same? So I've done that. Then they used to have a lot of fundraisers, etc. So I have been part of exhibitions where I've sold jewelry, etc. there as well.
Interesting.
So that those were a lot of smaller things that I did during those times. And I think that's where that whole passion fine-tuned, and I said, okay, this is interesting.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's one of those things that I am personally also very particular about, that if somebody does it with passion and interest, I think he or she can do a good job at it. Right. I think that's one of the mantras that even I follow in my own life as well. Great. So subsequently, having found your passion and then basically converting that into a career. So you started, working with Asian Paints, I believe, and then Ola, and then Oyo. So tell us a little about these journeys. So how was it like working for these companies? What were your responsibilities, and what was your general experience? As a professional versus having just initially realizing that you're passionate about it, but now converting it into a full-time job. How was the experience like?
Um, so Gaurav, once I did my MBA, and this was in the heart of that whole financial crisis that happened.
Yeah.
And I was very, very clear, as I said, that marketing was what I wanted to do, sales was what I wanted to do, and somehow I landed up without a placement.
Yeah.
That was a major
Okay.
hit, and I think that was the time that we first met.
That's correct.
So
Yeah.
the first year that I went about, so I was working with a small organization where we were selling astrology.
Yeah.
So I sold everything from astrology software to all your astrology yantras, rings, rudraksh. Stood up in exhibitions, shouted at the top of my voice, etc. So that was another very, very fun period until the time this whole big break with Asian Paints came in. So Asian Paints, I did all their three main verticals. So I did their channel sales. So all the dealers that you see in the markets there, that was something that I took care of for North Bengal, Sikkim, and Bhutan. So very, very beautiful place to be working out from. After a couple of years in that role, then I moved to institutional sales. So all your government projects, all your builders, and all your housing societies, etc. And then the last role that I handled in Asian Paints was their services vertical, where I was leading their consultancy wing for East. So I had this team of interior designers who will come and suggest on what paint you should use, what color should you use, what wallpaper should you use. So the three major verticals, I touched upon all of them. Then I moved to a complete marketing role with Ola, and 2015 was still the time where that whole app cap thing was still taking off in the country.
Definitely, yes.
So everything from getting those downloads done, all the offers that you got, all the discounts that you got, all that emails, notifications, everything, ATL, BTL, all the hoardings that you saw was something that I took care of. So in 3 years at Ola, I took care of Calcutta initially. Then I was looking after East. Then I was looking after all the tier 3 markets, all your Agra and Madurai and Trichy, Aurangabad, Gaya, all those kind of markets. And then finally, I was looking after the Bombay market. So this was a pure marketing and demand generation role. And then I moved back to sales, which you don't find too many people saying that marketing karne ke baad sales chalega. But then Oyo, I went back to sales, where I was leading a team of 220 odd people. So everything from corporate sales, travel agent sales, medical, events, all those things was something that I was taking care of. So yeah, that was a very, very good journey across industries, across geographies, across scale, across the kind of, I would say, the stage the organization was in. So it's something that has taught me a lot, and I think those are the learnings that I carry forward now as well.
Interesting. So I think after marketing and then sales, and after that, I think into now digital coaching, so why did you make the switch, and tell us about the market and tell us about the opportunities that, led you to make the switch in your career. It's a very interesting switch. I've very rarely seen people make such bold moves. I'd love to know what went through your mind during this transition.
So Gaurav, I come from a traditional service family, and business is never a part of generally that is there. This started in 2019 when I won the LinkedIn Spotlight Award. Now, LinkedIn for me had always been a side passion where, like, okay, I love writing and I'm putting it out, etc. Yes, there would a lot of team members who would come and say, "Sir, you write very well," but you never realized that was it genuine appreciation, or was it because they reported into you. Till the day that one email came in from LinkedIn saying that you're a part of the LinkedIn Spotlight list, and that's the list with where they select the top content creators with the most engaging and viewed content. Tab laga ki maybe, okay, this is something which is good. And at that time, there was the thought somewhere at the back of the mind that maybe this is something that I can look at. Even in my sales stint, when you're leading a team of 200 people, you don't do sales yourself.
Yeah.
Your work is to get those 200 people up and running, to be able to sell, to get them up to the mark, train them, understand a lot of this. So that's what the training fun was there. And if you had asked me frankly, this plan was still maybe 3-4 years away for me. It was not something that I had planned till the time the whole pandemic thing came in. One, I was in the hospitality sector. Second, I was leading corporate events that time. And one find is obviously the whole industry so-called crashed. And that's when I felt that maybe this is the time that I can experiment. I always have that corporate career to fall back on. I said, okay, I might never have the guts to take this plunge. So why not take the plunge, try it out and see if it works. So I gave myself 4 months. At the end of 4 months, it worked the way I was better than what I was planning for. I gave myself another 4 months and then I gave myself another 4 months. So now I'm in that fourth part of those 4 months. So it's almost close to 16, 17 months that I've been doing this. And it's gone there and it's gone better than what I had planned. I over the last year and a half, I've met a lot of people who have made transitions and I've realized that it is not as easy as it seems and gone back. Uh, but I would say it's a very, very great learning experience. So two things. One, whatever that I've learned with those organizations is something that I'm using.
Definitely.
Second, this year and a half has been a learning revelation in itself,
Yeah.
because it is not as simple as it seems. People are very bold in saying, "Arey, I want to do something of my own." You are an entrepreneur. You realize it's a very, very tough thing.
Oh yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so yes, I am still learning every day. I'm still making mistakes every day. I'm still trying every day. So you have those falls and your climbs there. But yeah, I think that's part of the journey.
Absolutely, that's absolutely awesome. I think so the pandemic, had some good news for you, in basically in that case.
Right.
Okay, that's good to know. So, how is the market responding to to the kind of work that you do? How's the in the Indian context? Did you talk about coaching for or maybe perhaps senior professionals and so on and so forth in the Indian, presumably in the Indian context. So, how is the market in general responding to the kind of work that you do? Are they like receptive? Are people open to ideas coming from an outside consultant? What is this? What is the general market trend right now?
See, a lot of my work is with businesses, startups, SMEs. There are two kinds of genres here. One, people traditionally been in the business but have never had someone maybe with an experience of a fast-paced startup coming in with those set of ideas. So that's one kind of businesses that I worked a lot with. Second is a lot of younger businesses who may not have the financial capacity at today's stage to have a senior professional coming in. So they might have a very young team who needs that little bit of guidance or a hand holding there. Third are startups which are majorly run by technical professionals. So they have the technical knowledge, but they do not have the marketing or the business side of experience, as they say. So and when you are in a new startup, your focus is a lot on getting that product fine-tuned and made perfect. So you don't get a lot of time on the other side. So these are three main genres that I come in with experience of Asian Paints and a Ola and a Oyo. As I said, three very, very different industries. One works with retail partners, so you have the whole distributor channel. One was the pure marketing and the whole app download kind of thing. Third was a lot into corporate sales of what I do. So based on the clientele, a lot of this information is required. Now, I was working with edtech. I was consulting a edtech startup last year, where a lot of my learning that I was doing with Ola came in. So your engagement plans, loyalty, downloads, etc. So I was working with them till the time they got acquired by one of these big edtech startups there. So a lot of those learnings do come in. Market is receptive. Yes. So for me, it's a balance between my training bit and my consulting bit. Training, in addition to my sales marketing training, I do a lot of corporate trainings on career enhancement, time management, how to be a rock star at work. And then I do a lot on LinkedIn, etc. That's what a lot of people see. LinkedIn is something that is very much visible to people there. So that's again, so I work with a lot of edtechs for their students. I work with a lot of corporates for their sales teams, etc. And the senior leaders for their personal branding. So one thing that I've learned in my whole entrepreneurial journey is that you need to have multiple revenue streams. You need to have things working out for you parallelly and passively as well. So I think that's where I have been working for the last year and a half to get these streams into flow.
Yep, understood. So, I mean, in generally, what my perception about the Indian market is that, people will not pay for consulting unless it's a doctor. Have you proven the market wrong? Are people open to ideas? Are people open to hearing and getting thoughts from people, who are domain experts, in your case, corporate experts and, LinkedIn experts? How in general, do you see a big market for your opportunity? For the kind of, and for the kind of work that you're doing, what are your, like, big long term plans in this area?
See, yes, there are those set of people who have that mindset where they say, no, I do not want help. I get that. But yes, a lot more people are getting a lot more open to this fact, to understand that people from maybe different industries or different segments will be able to bring a different new perspective. Because again, when I talk about traditional businesses, a lot of these businesses are in that 20, 30, 40 crore bid for years. I remember talking to someone who said, Sampark, मैं 2011 में जहाँ था मैं आज भी वहीं पे हूँ. But with 2011 and 2021, the world has changed. When I started my career, digital marketing did not exist. So a lot has changed. A lot of how you reach your consumers has changed. So a lot of these ideas come in. Now, I'll give you an example from the marketing perspective. When you talk about the 90s, you remember the Cadbury ad. Everybody went crazy when the new Cadbury ad came in, because the number of mediums that time were different. You had one ad, and that same ad used to run for 6 months, 8 months, so much so that you remember the jingle. But अगर आज मैं आपको बोलूं कि आज के ad का कोई jingle बोल दो तो नहीं याद रहता, because your ads are customized as per audiences. Your ads change every month or so. With the whole digital marketing thing, you being a tech savvy guy, you might see a different communication. I being a marketing guy, I might see a different communication. So it's fairly segmented, fairly targeted. So marketing has changed, and it's very, very important for brands to change with this. I'll give you another example. I was working with somebody who was into the mobile phone accessories. Now, since I think good 7-8 years, he'd been working that whole physical distributor channel. I asked him, are you there on the online space? He was still not there. Now, with the whole Flipkarts and the Amazons and the various other smaller players as well, you need to have a presence on digital. The whole e-commerce bit there, and with the kind of penetration that they are doing is phenomenal. So I think that's where people need to realize. And once people have tasted the success, they've tried it out, they get hooked to that as well.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely. So you've tasted, both domains. I think you've gone through a relatively stable, well-paying, and very well established brands. Corporate career is what I would like to call it. And then there is this whole, startup life, so to speak, where you are discovering your path, going on that path, coming across. Every day would be a challenge. Every day would bring in new opportunities, new challenges. And there are, many people who aspire to be entrepreneurs, or at least, have, like you said, a passive and, still a very well-established source of revenue apart from what their main line of work might be. So what are your thoughts, Sampark, in terms of anybody who's on that intersection where he has a good, stable corporate job on one side and an entrepreneurial dream on another side? Okay. Is it, what would you recommend? Is it worth the switch, or would it be good if that person can, just stay on where he is, or do you think everybody should give this a chance? What are your thoughts around this?
See, a couple of things. For me, as I said, this plan was actually still a few years away, but the circumstances happened such that I took that plunge. Now, I knew that I always had that fallback option. So it's not easy for everyone to say, okay, I'll take the plunge and I'll see what happens. It is, a lot of people say, kood jao fir seekh lena, but yes, it's not financially and mentally also open, because not everybody's stable in that sense, in the sense of the amount of risk-taking ability that you have. So what I tell people is, one, don't procrastinate. Now that's another problem on the other side. I will do it. I want to do it. Someday I will do it. It's always good to have your own. So one, don't over procrastinate. Okay? Start taking action, but start working on your side hustle while you are working. While you have that flow coming in, this was a learning that a person that I look up to gave me while I was in my job. He said, start working on your side hustle. If your side hustle starts paying you approximately 30% of your fixed salary, that is the time you need to make a switch. So अगर छोटा काम या part time करके आप 30% कर रहे हो, the moment you make a switch, you can recover there, because
easily, yes.
Because a lot of people have this problem. The moment they jump, this fall in income comes in, which people are not able to manage. In my consulting, I worked with individuals as well who maybe a year into this whole pandemic thing came to me and said, Sampark, I want to go back into my corporate career because I've not been able to get that kind of flow in terms of income, because I have family responsibilities, I have kids growing up, etc. So one, build your side hustle while you're working. It will give you a chance to experiment, fail, remodel. Once you've fine-tuned it a bit, obviously perfection is very, very far, but once you fine-tune it, then take the plunge. Second, once you've taken the plunge, work on multiple streams. So even if you're consulting, you should have other sources of income. So one, I do a lot of trainings, I do a lot of one-on-one consulting, I do a lot of, I have my online courses there, which is one part. Then I work with a lot of senior leaders in building their own personal brand on social media. So you have those 3-4 channels working. Yes, you'll say, how does one person do all of that? Set up teams, set up freelancers, set up interns. So you should get that additional help. It's never possible for you to build it up. So that is where you hedge your funds, as they say. And yes, passive income is important. Because end of the day, all of us need to work towards that financial independence. That's the ultimate goal.
Absolutely.
So that's where you put it, but it is tough. It is something that worries you have, because a lot of times with family, you have those responsibilities, you have those EMIs flowing, etc. So it is scary at times, but I would say take your call. It's to each his own. It's an interesting journey. I'll tell you, for me, what has motivated me is that there's no ceiling to this. So if you go up, and sky is the limit there. So that's where I've gone. That's what has motivated me. And I always know that in case, God forbid, something does go wrong, I always have my corporate career. And this is again something that I teach in my LinkedIn session, that it's very important to build your personal brand. It's very important for people to recognize you. So while a lot of people talk about LinkedIn as a lead generation, etc., revenue, etc., I say use LinkedIn as the awesome networking tool that it is. Build your plan B. A lot of influencers say never make your plan B. You should have your plan A so that you have no chance of failing. The point is, your plan A can fail even if you are not responsible for it. COVID was not planned. It just happened. So you should always have a fallback option. And that is where I think building a network, building a personal brand, projecting yourself as a thought leader becomes very important. And I think that's where I have been pushing to all my sessions that I do on LinkedIn, that it's very, very important to build that brand for yourself.
Got it. So Sampark, so you've hit the right spot, and that's where so now talking about LinkedIn, talking about personal branding, we cannot end this session without having some good tips and tricks from you on how to do that. So what would be some of the tips and tricks that you can suggest to our audience in terms of how to use LinkedIn for personal branding? So what are the common do's and don'ts? What are the common mistakes that you've seen? And as somebody who's just starting about making his LinkedIn profile, perhaps for the first time, and maybe have a few connections here and there from their schools and colleges and from their offices and so on, what would be the first step, or what would be the first few tips that you would like to give to such people?
See, one thing, a lot of people assume that there are hacks to it. There is no hack to it. There are no hacks to building a brand. There is no hack to building a network. Now, people assume that, okay, my profile is there on LinkedIn and that is enough. No. Building a brand is a lot of hard work. I tell in my session, there are only 2 secrets to winning on LinkedIn. One is consistency and one is patience. Okay. So once you build your profile, you need to be very, very consistent on the platform. And you need to be patient. So you need to be constantly engaging in the form of creating content, commenting, conversing, talking to people. It's about building conversations. And when I'm building conversations, I'm talking not about transactional conversations. It's about sharing knowledge, giving value, exchanging thoughts. Because the more you talk to people, the more people know you, the more you know about people, the more you are able to connect to different people. Just the fact that we are talking. Now, while I'm talking and I'm talking about, and anybody who's listening to this also, they might say, okay, I can understand marketing. This is what I learned from this podcast, etc. That relationship that you nurture in the long run can come as opportunities in forms of jobs, businesses, etc. But do not jump into it with that saying, "Arey, I want this."
Mm-hmm.
If you go with the intention of taking, you will not get anything. But if
Yep.
you go with the intention of giving, then you get, then you don't need to take. So today, if you go through my LinkedIn feed, I don't go and sell, buy my service, buy my service, buy my consultancy. I go there, talk about my knowledge, talk about my marketing experience. I talk about stories and snippets and information that I have, which indirectly tells the consumer, okay, this guy knows marketing. And that is what organically gets the lead. So that is where, for me, I get at least 3 to 4 leads every day out of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
now that's, I would say, for a lot of people say 3, 4 every day. That means almost 50, 70, 100 a month. Now, that's the kind of, and this is organic. This is me about being active on the platform. I tell it in my sessions also. Jo dikhta hai, wo bikhta hai. And again, it's also about selling yourself. The concept, the foundation of sales remains the same. A
Yep.
lot of marketing guys whom I teach LinkedIn, they say, "अरे यार, मैं 15 साल से यही चीज अपने product के लिए use कर रहा था. I didn't realize that I need to build that same thing for myself as well."
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, and why is it important? People today are counted by the brand that they work for.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you? I'm XYZ at this brand.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, job security is a myth, and that COVID has proven. Okay?
Yep.
Businesses can come and go. Again, the last year and a half has been absolutely a proof of this. The only brand that will you till your deathbed is your name.
Yep.
And that is the only thing that will sell. So
Yeah.
if I go onto LinkedIn and say, do you know Gaurav Gupta? They should know. And if they know, that is where those opportunities come in.
Mm-hmm.
Achha, but if people know, अरे संपर्क वो तो ओयो में sales head कर रहा था, but कल कर रहा था, आज नहीं कर रहा, तो फिर then people should still remember me.
Yep.
And I think that's where it becomes very, very important. And I think that is what worked for me. That's a very important factor that I give credit to for me making this transition, because when I jumped out, a lot of people recognize Sampark. A lot of people recognize Sampark, which is the brand or the hashtag that I use. And and that is where, even though that slight fall did happen, but I was able to recover within a couple of months back to where I was. And this is a challenge that a lot of corporate to entrepreneurial switch people have.
Yep.
The moment they jump, they fall because nobody recognizes them as themselves. So,
Yeah.
so I think that's very, very important. So,
Yeah.
Create content, talk to people, engage with people, have your profile updated, show your knowledge, go ahead, help people, go ahead, give value to the platform, and it will come back.
Yep, I think that's spot on, because just to also add a little bit of additional context to our viewers. I personally am also engaged with LinkedIn for a long time now, working towards building my own profiles, pushing out some regular content. And clearly, I was also a skeptic. I was very skeptical in terms of the power of the platform when somebody told me about 2 years ago that this is a platform that you should definitely work towards. I was very skeptical. I had never thought social media could be anything except just sharing photographs, and I was proven wrong hands down. So clearly, when I started doing it, and started doing it with consistency and patience, that is when I realized that yes, there is a significant value add. There is a lot of inherent networking benefits, a lot of recognition benefits, a lot of business benefits indirectly, which come along your way, and that too from people who actually have never met you, never spoken to you, but just simply follow you on LinkedIn. When we today, Sampark, even when I recruit people in my company, many of them tell me when they have my final round of discussion with me, they always tell me that so we have been following you on LinkedIn for the past 1 year or 2 years, and we've been reading through all your posts, and I still find it quite miraculous that somebody like me, who may not have been a potential employer for them 2 years ago, but they liked my content, and that is how now once they graduated from their college, they realize that okay, why not work for this guy whom we have been following for past 2 years. That's the beauty of it. That's the magic of it, that people whom you have never met in your life, probably will never meet in your life, are still feel a connection to the content that you are writing because they have gone through similar journeys. That's the beauty of it. At least personally, that is how it worked for me as well.
Absolutely, absolutely correct, Gaurav. And I think I also remember during my corporate career, because I should travel within the company offices and cities.
Yeah.
I remember traveling to Indore, and somebody came back and said, "Sir, I joined the organization because I'd seen posts from you." I remember
Yeah.
traveling to the Pune office once, and somebody specially came back to me, "Sir, I've read your content so many times, but I never got a chance to meet you, so I came down to meet you." So yes, it is genuinely. You don't realize the reach of it. A lot of people say, Sampark, who notices it? Everybody notices it.
Everybody does. Yeah, absolutely.
He may or may not engage with your content.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, I remember getting introduced to the CEO of one of the organizations that I worked with, and he said, "I recognize you from LinkedIn." So the fact is that
Uh,
that has a more reach than the kind of work that I was doing. So that's the beauty of the platform. So yes, absolutely agree to each point that you mentioned there.
Absolutely. So Sampark, I would like to wish you lots and lots of luck, and my all my best wishes for this new journey that you've taken up. I think it's still early days, considering that it's just been 1.5 year or 2 years now,
Right.
basically. And I'm sure that with the kind of work that you're doing and knowing you as a person, you will be very, very successful in this domain. And I'm sure that you'll probably 10 years later, when we see this podcast, we'll both be smiling and saying, wow, when 10 years ago, see
Right.
what we used to talk about, and what we used to discuss, and see everything is true. The LinkedIn platform has given us so much, and so on and so forth. I think that day is not very far off. And Sampark, all the best for your Sampark initiative. And I'm hoping that with your knowledge and with your hard work, you will be able to benefit hundreds and if not thousands of entrepreneurs and business people with their LinkedIn networking and aspirations.
Thank you so much, Gaurav. It was an absolute pleasure being here. And I'm sure that, yes, we will do another version of this podcast 10 years later, and then we will look back on this for sure.
Absolutely,
Thank you so much.
absolutely. Thank you, Sampark. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Thank you.